All right, so let's get into it today. And this is all about mining in the digital space. We've talked about different types of use cases, but one thing that is really coming up more and more, and that is building mesh networks, access to potential expanded Wi-Fi networks, all through a potential blockchain projects that are starting to emerge in the space. We're going to dive in deep. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into TechPath. Joining me today is Mr. Justin Caswell, who is the founder and CEO over a company called RevoFi, also a blockchain company. Justin, let's jump into it. Tell me a little bit about RevoFi for a newbie who maybe doesn't necessarily understand how these things work.
Okay, yeah. So I think the device is really meant to just augment what you already have or replace what you already have for Wi-Fi. The big difference is that instead of going to Best Buy and getting a Wi-Fi device that, is good for gaming or something like that, the main difference is that now you can get one of our devices and it's actually going to make you money, where the other devices from Best Buy, they only have a singular purpose and they're not ever really going to make you money. So with our devices, right out of the gate, just by standard usage, checking your email, streaming videos from Netflix, playing video games, anything that you do on the device is going to start making you money. And that's really the biggest difference here, right? With our devices compared to others out there.
So when you look at mining, you guys, of course, have a token sale coming up, the access to the RevoFi token, RVS, I believe. Explain the process of mining and how the token infrastructure and maybe the economy works for people that are starting to populate the land with RevoFi devices.
Sure. Yeah, the devices are really meant to do three different things all simultaneously, and that's really provide connectivity, storage, and compute. And so when we really think about what we do today on the internet and the services that we have, generally speaking, right, almost everything that we do is in the cloud. So when we think about cloud, right, that's like Amazon Web Services, GCP. Yep. Azure, right? And so what we're doing is we're saying, let's take a little piece of that data center and the cloud, and let's move it all the way out to the far edge, and let's put it into these devices. And then what that does, right, is it allows us to disaggregate and decentralize those cloud-based services, a little piece at a time. And by doing so, now you get the ability for developers to deploy applications all the way to the far edge. So they get better reactivity. They can actually provide better applications for their users. And then, of course, on the device owner side, you're making money because people are using those devices for the storage and compute capabilities that they have built in internally. And so the tokenomics are really focused on utilization. It's utilization of the Wi-Fi 6 mesh, the storage, and the compute as well. So I think whenever we start looking at residential versus businesses, there's going to be different use cases there for deployment models, and you're going to have a lot of different types of scenarios. That's going to be varied from, say, like a downtown area where you've got 20 of these deployed or 2,000 of these deployed, compared to out in like a rural area. But I think that the main point, right, is that we're really focused on the utilization of the devices, whether that's the person that owns the device and then, friends and family that are using it or communities that are using that, or if we're deploying in a business scenario and they're really trying to de-risk their deployment model, say for like a Wi-Fi offload program.
Right. Okay, so the device itself, similar to other, so-called miners, in your particular case, it's more of a use case scenario of bandwidth. The perfect kind of person that would deploy a RevoFi router out there, would that be an individual? Would it maybe be a business owner or someone who owns multiple properties? What's kind of the best opportunity for people to utilize the device?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're seeing a blend of all of those, Paul, to be honest with you. And I think we're even seeing individuals actually creating their own businesses off of this, right? Mm-hmm. So they're saying, hey, let's get it in my home first. Let's see how it handles my son's gaming, right? Like, let's get it in the house and see how we can handle our, just our standard, streaming. And right. Then I think, we're also seeing a lot of, interest from telcos on the business side. And I think they're seeing it from like a fixed wireless perspective, for densification and probably some other, missing opportunities within their marketplace. Especially when you start talking about cloud-based services that you can push all the way out to the edge, it becomes very interesting for telcos to be able to offer cloud-based services and upsell, their customers and clients that way. So I think, there's a varied scenario here for all kinds of different people. Everybody from, just deploying these into like their community instead of using fiber or cable for hardline media. So I think we're seeing a blend of all those different types of scenarios, from individuals to companies to massive industry.
So I have a ton of questions here around, just the use case and some of the details. Maybe we'll get into some of the weeds here. Most of our audience, fairly technical, understanding a lot about crypto and in traditional blockchain and growth, but at the same time, we have new people coming in. Explain to me the idea behind a Wi-Fi, potentially or will this be, I should say, will this be a mesh network? Would that be kind of the ultimate goal if you could get enough density to start sharing, much like some of the other devices that are designed for more IoT type traffic versus, say, traditional web traffic? What's kind of the plan there for that?
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. I think the real end goal and dream here, right, is that you have a unified Wi-Fi 6 mesh network globally that's accessible anywhere you go. And the reason I say a uniform is because if you look at how Wi-Fi exists today and how we know about Wi-Fi and how we use it today, the user experience when you're traveling, not all that great, right? So
sucks.
I mean, we go. Yeah, right. So
terrible.
Not historically awesome. So I think what we're really trying to focus on is that end user experience and really unifying, how you use Wi-Fi wherever you go. And so, whether we actually have Wi-Fi 6 mesh coverage globally, that's one thing. But I think more importantly, where you have Wi-Fi available, whether it's in your house or if you fly to another country and then you go in a hotel and they have RevoFi there, that same user experience should be uniform across both of those. So that way you're reducing logins and security credentials, and then you're also reducing the amount of times you have to log in for like credit cards and those types of things. If you want to have better service in your internet, for a hotel or whatever, all of those different things create a lot of, barriers. And then additionally on that, right, the quality of the actual service itself is just all over the map too. And so we really want to try to standardize that experience from the logon to different networks for mobility, all the way to the billing automation systems of it.
Yeah. Now, will this all be enabled through the RevoFi app, or what will it be just like an open internet access point that you would find on your phone when you flip to your Wi-Fi option, or would you need an app to be able to interface?
Yep. Yeah. So both, right? So you would have you'd be able to see the RevoFi hotspots everywhere you go, but then in order to use it, you would just download the application. And then that's how you would have your data credits there to actually use the network, regardless of where you are. And then that also gives you an automatic logon and kind of some other features there for user experience.
Yeah, interesting. All right, so, okay, I'm thinking in terms of density and what this might look like in, whether you look at municipalities or, small cities that maybe look to try to create a mesh Wi-Fi network, which has kind of been the holy grail of internet access for quite some time. Just no one has really been able to go that level. Obviously, with Wi-Fi 6, we've seen a lot more advancements in terms of length and the ability to really kind of spread that spectrum in terms of the radio side of things. How many would you need in, say, a square mile to have a good Wi-Fi mesh network? How many of the RevoFi devices would need to be out there?
I'm going to give you the engineering answer. It depends. Every deployment
Buildings,
scenario is different.
structures, all those kind of things. With Wi-Fi 6, is it? Do you get any more length than what you do get with traditional Wi-Fi? Because I'm seeing a lot. I have a Wi-Fi 6 device right now in my home, I do see better performance with that versus in my other traditional Wi-Fi that is not Wi-Fi 6. How far out can I go, and do these things start to piggyback with each other?
Yeah. So I think the environments vary, because it's just Wi-Fi, right? But Wi-Fi 6 in general is going to outperform, any other previous standard that's out there. So you're going to definitely see a performance increase for just like throughput and just general, I guess, overall broadband throughput for performance for just the Wi-Fi 6 standard, right? But I think where you're also going to see a little bit of a difference is just how it handles interference. So previously for Wi-Fi, evolution for standards, there was a lot of interference problems that they were trying to handle at the hardware level through the specifications. And so I think Wi-Fi 6 makes a great jump or leap almost in solving a lot of those interference problems. They've done a really fantastic job of that. And then, we've worked with MediaTek chipsets, and they've been in the game for a long time as well. So I think the distance question, is going to be varied depending on the environment. But in general, with just Wi-Fi 6, and then we're bringing Wi-Fi 6 mesh along with that, right? And that was absolutely critical for us to make sure that worked with the NVIDIA platform that we've chosen. And right. To my knowledge, we're the first ones in the world, Paul, with Wi-Fi 6 mesh and a blockchain working natively on NVIDIA compute. It's a pretty big deal for us, and I think we'll glean some intelligence on distance and how these networks are actually going to mesh together, depending on those deployment models over the next several months.
So you've got NVIDIA tech inside the device. You've got ARM processors, which are fairly, I would say, significant. When I was looking at the device specs, I was impressed with what you have overall. When you look at some of the tool sets, because there's a lot of different projects out there that are looking at doing cloud-style compute that would enable these kinds of device structures to enact and especially work in different phases like metaverse applications, gaming applications, all sorts of things that really could fly into this. What would be the typical use case on these devices if I'm hosting a RevoFi router at my location where it's a business home, etc.? How much of my bandwidth would be, can I allocate a certain amount of the bandwidth, or is there a certain limit? And what kind of device traffic am I going to see coming across?
Yeah. So I think that, one of the important things to understand about us that I think is also very different is that these devices are designed to get better over time. So they're not throwaway devices. They're meant to really last for, up to a decade is what our goal is.
Okay.
And so, we really want to make sure that people understand that out of the gate, right? Whenever you're using these devices in your home, the rewards and the minting of Revos is probably going to be primarily tied to that utilization of that home user. And then if we deploy it in, say, like a business setting, even the business setting, you're going to have users there that are using those business applications and doing kind of the standard stuff. I think what we'll actually see is that back end differentiator for our cloud-based services. And we'll be building out that back end where, now you can take and deploy your microservice applications, cloud native applications anywhere on the network onto these devices. Now, this is the big difference, because now you're talking about Netflix paying you to watch Netflix in your home.
Yep.
Because, they're putting their CDN endpoint all the way into your home. And so it really changes the paradigm, I think, when you look at potential revenue earnings, especially whenever it comes from a network appliance that typically makes you no money at all.
Yeah, definitely. So your thought is that we could see this really kind of ramp up the architecture in which some of these endpoints could be deployed on a variety of applications, like you just mentioned in a scenario like a Netflix with content delivery networks, and many others. I mean, there's all kinds of cloud services out there now, especially, and even IoT services to a certain layer, because there's a ton of traffic many people don't know this, there's a ton of traffic that's just generating over the airwaves that is looking for a device to connect to. What what would I see in terms of potential revenue opportunity? Let's just say, I know it depends, but I'm a business. I'm in a fairly dense area. The likelihood is I'm going to get pretty significant traffic. Maybe I've got a hotel or I've got a restaurant that I could use this device for my patrons, but also maybe passerby type traffic. What would be kind of the expectation I could potentially get with being able to host one of these?
Yeah, I mean, I think whenever you start looking at like the coffee shop scenario, especially in dense urban areas, I mean, that's kind of like the model, right? We all kind of know and
Sure.
understand. I think in that scenario where, you probably are going to have, 4 or 5 different RevoFi devices throughout the area. Let's just assume four to five. You're probably going to see, some pretty substantial Revos rewards out of that, Revos minting. And so, probably as long as the utilization is high, I mean, and depending on how early you are in the network, you could see some substantial revenue generation just off of those 4 or 5 devices. And then, of course, over time, because we're really focused on utilization right out of the gate, those rewards are going to be pretty stable throughout the next 50 years, as long as you maintain that utilization. And so, obviously, you're looking for a solid number, but I think what you'll see is a substantial revenue increase compared to other types of miners that are out there at a very low energy cost. And you get a lot of application use cases out of those devices over a decade.
Yeah. You mentioned a key statement there, early in the network. So I guess it matters as to when you deploy into the network?
I would think to some extent, yes. Just simply because, we're trying to hit production rates, for Revos minting. And so I think, whenever you get into the network early, you're going to see higher rewards just simply because there's going to be a higher demand for those services and those devices. We're seeing a pretty fast uptick in demand. We went from, just to give you an idea, we went from, we sold a little over 300 devices over the first 4 to 5 months of us being in business. And then over the last 2 months, we've done over, so now we're just over 3,000 devices. So it's a pretty substantial demand increase. And I think whenever people learn what they can do and how they can sell this into the market, especially the cloud-based services, it's a really big game-changing perspective, I think, for paradigm models.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking at a variety of options that you have on your website in terms of the devices themselves. Can you break down the different types of devices? Because you've got like a founder's version. Explain the differences. Where and what can I get here if I want to get into one of these?
Yeah, so we've got the 3 devices. The Link is our entry-based model. And that's really meant to be the most cost efficient. So if you're wanting to really get into RevoFi and just crypto mining in general, it's a great baseline product. Now you can take the Link and upgrade it over time, and it can become a Link Pro if you add the different components to it. But the Link is really just a baseline model. It's got Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 6 mesh. You've got Wi-Fi 5. You've got 8-port Ethernet in there, and all the standard platform offerings that we have. And then with the Link Pro, you get the ability for expansion for cellular and satellite. And so now you can take a cellular or satellite module and put that into your device with a SIM card and a data plan. Now there's 2 expansion modules in the Link Pro. We did this because we wanted it to have backwards compatibility for 2G all the way to 4G cellular technology modules. But then also a lot of satellite modules come in, mini PCIe format.
Yeah.
And then we've also got the B key in there, and that's really for 5G cellular evolution technology. So the Link Pro really gives you a lot of backhaul capability and optionality depending on where you're at in the world. So you can put a Link Pro in your RV, or you can travel through the EU, and as long as you have the right module and SIM card, you can have connectivity and Wi-Fi 6 mesh. And then you've got the micro, right? So the micro was really the first one that we put together. So that's a Gen 1 model, and the main difference there is that it doesn't have any cellular satellite capability, but what it does have is it has software-defined radio. And we've embedded a HackRF1 SDR radio, which is an open source radio, into the device. And with software-defined radio, you can do all kinds of different interesting things, right? From monitoring, different IoT devices. You can pull stuff in. It gives you a broad range of capabilities. And for example, for revenue generation, right? So the SDR, there's a bunch of telcos out there. They pay millions of dollars every year for RF analysis of their networks and to do drive tests, right? And so you could actually put this out there, and then now you've got telcos that will pay you to simply just do RF analysis. So that's kind of the primary differences between the three devices, and really what the offerings are.
Yeah. Interesting. I like the concept here. I'm very fascinated with just mesh networking and kind of what that future could hold out there, especially when it gets into earning rewards in a blockchain capacity. Explain the rewards types. You've got proof of network and then proof of ping. What's kind of the differences there?
Yeah, so they're all kind of tied under the proof of network stuff there, but the proof of ping. So this actually comes from my 20 plus years in networking. One of the primary tools that you use when setting up networks or troubleshooting networks is a Unix-based tool called ping, right? And so you ping an IP address to see if it's actually there, if you're on the right network. And so what I did is, we're taking that tool and we're actually turning it into something that can actually be used autonomously on the network. So proof of ping is really meant to be just a self-check of the network to validate different nodes to say, okay, are you there? What's the quality of your link? What's the quality of your connection? And it tests, randomly. And so we'll use that to really just validate autonomously the quality of the network at all times, so that it can become self-sustaining. And because we're building everything on NVIDIA compute, again, right, we have AI built in. So we can start looking at automating the network day zero to really become a very efficient self-healing type of network. So proof of ping is just one piece of what we're really trying to accomplish there. But we want to incentivize that aspect of it, because it is eating bandwidth to some extent. And it's also something that we feel people should be rewarded for generating that data for us.
Yeah, for sure. I want to jump back to the hardware for a minute. You mentioned NVIDIA and NVIDIA NCG. Are you at all concerned about being able to roll these devices out with what we are seeing in terms of the demand issues around chips and those kind of things of building devices like this? Are you guys impacted in any way on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think it's been a major challenge for us over the last several months. I mean, we're talking about historic supply chain problems that the world has never seen. Luckily, we've got a great team and a lot of support from NVIDIA. Over like the last few weeks, we've really been working with them. So we have direct lines to their manufacturing floor. We know exactly, they've been very transparent with us over the last few days. And they said, this is exactly how many units we can get. This is, they're actually ramping up production for us specifically. So long story short, NVIDIA and all of our suppliers, we've done a lot of work with them, and we did that to ensure that we can meet the demand that's going to be coming. And so right now, we're in a better position because of that, even though it's kind of slowed us down to some extent. But I think that slowdown is definitely worth, doing that. So now we can actually meet the demand this year with all of our partners and clientele that are coming online.
Wow. Well, this will be good to see those kinds of rollouts. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the tech, kind of the overall. Let's get into the token a bit and really understand more of how that works, because I know Now with the founder's device, you actually get some tokens, is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So we did 3,000 Founders Edition units, and that's 1,000 of each device. And then you get 500 Revos with the device, and you'll also get a Cypher Army NFT with each one of those devices as well. And that's just the Founders Edition devices. The Link Pro Founders Edition device sold out quite a while ago, but
Yeah.
we still have some Founders Edition for the Link and the Micro.
And the token sale, when does this go live?
So the token sale went live December 15th. It's still going right now. So you can go out and sign up on our Revos Holdings platform and purchase Revos today. The Revos Wallet App is scheduled to be released officially. We're announcing it right here on live on the network. So we'll be releasing that this next week for download on Apple and the Play Store for Google. So it'll be available on Android and iOS this next week. So just finalizing that testing, but you can go and sign up and buy Revos right now, even without the wallet. And that Revos Holdings platform is really meant to be a simplistic way for people to onboard for crypto. And we're even seeing a ton of brand new people that have never been in crypto before. We're seeing a lot of different demographics of people that have never been in crypto before. So it's really exciting to see the token sale having that kind of diversity.
Right. Well, I think the difference is that what you're doing, people recognize it and understand, the concept. Even though it is an advanced concept in terms of mesh networking, people recognizes they use it every day. It's something they can feel like it's more of a tangible component versus many projects out there which have a lot of blue sky in there, and you never really know if it's going to become something. So I think that would make sense for that purpose of going. How did you guys work around the regulatory side of things? Because being able to offer a token direct sale, as you know, there's many companies out there that are not operating in the United States for some of the regulatory requirements that they have to go through to be able to do these kinds of initial scenarios. How did you guys go about that in terms of the architecture of the token to be able to do a public sale like that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So we spent the last probably several years directly in Colorado and working with the governor and the governor's office in Colorado, as well as like others in the crypto space. But we worked directly with them and the different regulators to understand what our environment was going to be. And so we really took our time, Paul, making sure that whenever we released this token, that it fell within those guidelines within that state. And so we were heavily involved with the Colorado Digital Token Act that was initiated and signed into legislature back in 2019. We were actually at the Capitol that day. We were invited there by the governor's office to be there, along with a lot of other crypto companies too. But we were the first ones to file exemption under that new token act, and so that exemption is what has made us, I guess the uniqueness that we have in the market is because of that exemption. But we have to follow a very rigid guideline there. And that is that the token has to be available for products or services within a certain amount of time from whenever we actually sell it. And so you can't just sell the token just to sell the token to raise money. Right. It actually has to be used legitimately for products or services within the network. And so we designed and engineered the token specifically to do that from day zero. And like you said, right, to your point, those physical devices, that's a product, and then the services that go on that device, right? And so it's a solid fit, and that's right. How we're able to do that, right? It's a true utilitarian token.
So obviously that abides with the hence being organized or set up in Colorado, so you can be able to essentially offer that public sale. All right, so talk to me about, last questions I have here is more around the economic side in terms of the costs. I was looking at a couple of things. Token holders pay RVS for transaction fees. How much is that? And then also token holders pay RVS for subscription and name registration. How does that apply into it as well?
Yeah, it's going to be very, very nominal. That's more of just whenever you first provision the device and then set up your
Okay,
own namespace. It's not that much of a cost, and it's really to just kind of pay the network for that contract.
I see.
So you're looking at a very, very, very nominal cost. And then on the transaction part, I think what we're actually seeing right now is the transaction network fees they're so nominal. I mean, they're fractions of a cent for the transaction. So I think that's even going to go to a smaller amount as we scale up and scale out.
Yeah. Okay, so explain to me Cypher Army NFTs. How did that get involved into this? It's a little bit different. Was it more of a marketing angle, or is there some sort of use case utility you're working on?
So that is my creative outlet for one. Um, but one of my things that I did as part of my background is I've done a lot of GIS work. I've done some VR and AR work, and one of the things that I was heavily involved with as part of that, right, is game engine building. So I was taking a lot of GIS data that you would have like in telcos and all their different layers, and say, okay, how do we create a digital twin in kind of a gaming environment? Because that's what people understand, and that's that
Yeah.
interface that we really need to just simplify stuff. And so I think that background and me coming from that background, I was looking at it, and then I said, how do we actually do an NFT that's actually going to be used? It's not just a profile picture. It's not just something that
Right.
it's cool to be in a club. So what we did is I actually built all of our NFTs directly into Unreal Engine. So these are
Oh,
actual
okay.
game ready characters that we're going to be able to actually put into different marketplaces. So then you can use the Cypher Army NFTs. This is the plan and the roadmap going forward into different types of metaverse platforms and metaverse worlds and different types of metaverse gaming, specifically cloud-based gaming. So that's really the aspect of this, right? Is like gamers will be able to take that NFT, and then they'll actually be able to use it as their avatar, so to speak, in a game ready type of engine. But
Interesting.
I think that there's a lot more there to it as well for the NFTs for tradability, and I think you can tie some other things to it. I think we're just barely scratching the surface there, Paul, on what we can do with the
No
NFTs
doubt.
and
No doubt.
what that actually means for our users.
Yeah, I think the NFT utility NFT, I should say, is really one of the, I think, gateways into what the future of real NFT use cases are going to be. We're seeing so much kind of start to evolve in the NFT space versus what we've seen. And, obviously people recognize NFTs and kind of in some cases misconstrue what NFTs are because they think it's a Bored Ape or it's, a JPEG, where a lot of real use case in the future, especially in dynamic NFTs, the potential for smart contract innovation that we're continuing to see develop across a lot of different chains right now is going to be very fascinating around a lot of different areas. Other than just metaverse gaming, we'll see this in all walks of life. So it's going to be an interesting phase for sure. So it's cool to see that you guys are taking that as a serious roadmap entry, because I think a lot of companies really need to go in that direction, especially around NFTs.
Yeah.
Anybody that's launching a token should have some sort of NFT module or use case utility attached to it as well. So fun. All right, last question.
Oh, I completely agree.
When are you going to get this onto an exchange? When can I buy this token on an exchange?
That's a great question. I think what we're planning to do right out of the gate, right, is one of the first things that we're going to do is I want to tie Bitcoin directly into Revos, right? So you can buy and sell Revos directly with Bitcoin, and I think that's going to be our first goal. And we want to do that in a decentralized way. Now, whenever you start talking about offering Revos on a centralized exchange system or even a DEX and just listing Revos as an available token, I think we're a little ways out from that. not that far, but I think we're a little ways out from that. And I think we have to be a little cautious there because, again, we're under that exemption with Colorado.
Right.
And I think as soon as we go from that exemption to actually being listed on an exchange, we're going to change that dynamic of our engagement with regulatory. And so we want to make
Right.
sure that we're doing everything properly there. But I think, to your point, we're going to have to get onto an exchange to provide liquidity for our customers and device owners who are really the owners of the network at the end of the day. So we're going to go there, but I would say, within like the next 3 to 4 months, that's a solid goal for us.
Oh, that's soon. So, wow. Okay, so that's good. Listen, Justin Caswell, great to have you on from RevoFi. I'm really interested in how this develops because I think as you guys get critical mass going, especially with density and the opportunity here, I think we'll probably continue to see some pretty big things from you guys. So thanks for stopping in.
Appreciate it, Paul. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
You bet. All right, so you guys are tuned in over on the podcast right now. We love it. We love to have you, whether you're listening in over on Spotify or iTunes, but really the best place to join TechPath and all these great interviews, things of this nature, our breakdowns of services, the blockchain, and even our analytics of a lot of the tokens that we do here on the show is right over here on YouTube. Just search Paul Barron Network, you'll find us. And of course, if you want to subscribe to us there, we'd appreciate that and like a video or two. But the best thing to do is reach out to me on Twitter if you have an idea for a show or you want us to cover a topic or break down something for you in the blockchain world. That's at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.